drug study list for the social work clinical exam. Typical antipsychotics are first generation neuroleptic for the treatment of schizophrenia and mania. May cause extrapyramidal symptoms, tardive dyskinesia, and abnormal involuntary movements. There are 11 typicals. I'll say the brand name first, then the generic name. Brand name Haldol. Generic name haloperidol. Brand name Haldol Decanoate. Generic name haloperidol. Brand name Loxitane. Generic name loxapine. Brand name Mellaril. Generic name thioridazine. Brand name Moban. Generic name molindone. Brand name Navane. Generic name thiothixene. Brand name Prolixin. Generic name fluphenazine. Brand name Serentil. Generic name mesoridazine. Brand name Stelazine. Generic name trifluoperazine. Brand name Thorazine. Generic name chlorpromazine. Brand name Trilafon. Generic name fluphenazine. That's the end of the 11 typical antipsychotics. Now we go on to the atypical antipsychotics, which are second generation neuroleptic. These are different from the typical in that the atypical are serotonin, dopamine antagonists used for the treatment of schizophrenia and mania. There are 6. And they usually end in PINE or DONE. And to go backwards a little bit, the typicals also usually end in AZINE. Each of them, there are others that end in different endings, but that's some common indicators are the last 4 or 5 letters in the name are common. So the atypicals are, starting with a brand name, Abilify, generic name aripiprazole, brand name Clozaril, generic name clozapine. This has an increased risk of a granulocytosis that requires blood monitoring. Brand name, Geodon. Generic name, Ziprasidone. Brand name, Risperdal. Generic name, Risperidone. Brand name, Seroquel. Generic name, Quetiapine. Brand name, Zyprexa. Generic name, olanzapine. That's the end of the atypicals. Now we move on to the anti-manic agents, also known as mood stabilizers. There are 6 to memorize. Brand name, Depakine. Generic name, valproic acid. Brand name, Depakote sprinkles. Generic name, divalproex sodium. Brand name, Lamictal. Generic name, lamotrigine. Brand name, Eskalith and Lithobid. Generic name, lithium. Lithium has a narrow therapeutic index, which necessitates periodic checks of blood levels. Periodically check thyroid and kidney function. Brand name, Tegretol and Carbatrol. Generic name, carbamazepine. Brand name, Topamax. Generic name, topiramate. This is the end of the anti-manic agents. Now we're moving on to the antidepressants, SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. There are 6 to memorize. Brand name, Celexa. Generic name, citalopram. Brand name, Lexapro. Generic name, S-citalopram. Brand name, Luvox. Generic name, fluvoxamine. Brand name, Paxil. Generic name, paroxetine. Brand name, Prozac. Generic name, fluoxetine. Brand name, Zoloft. Generic name, sertraline. This is the end of the 6 antidepressants, which are SSRIs. Now we move on to the tricyclic antidepressants. These drugs may be used for the treatment of other conditions. There are 9 in total. Brand name, Anafranil. Generic name, clomipramine. Brand name, Ascendin. Generic name, Omoxapine. Brand name, Elavil. Generic name amitriptyline. Brand name norpramine. Generic name decipramine. Brand name Pamelor. Generic name nortriptyline. Brand name Sinequan. Generic name Doxapine. Brand name Serentil. Generic name trimipramine. Brand name Tofranol. Generic name imipramine. Brand name Vivactol. Generic name protriptyline. This is the end of the tricyclic antidepressants. Now we're moving on to the monoamine oxidase inhibitors, MAOI, antidepressants. These have dietary restrictions of foods that contain high levels of tyramine. There are 2. Brand name Nardil. Generic name phenelzine. Brand name Parnate. Generic name Trenylcypromine. Now we move on to other antidepressants. There are various chemical compositions. This one is an SARI, a serotonin receptor antagonist and reuptake inhibitor. Brand name Destril. Generic name Trazodone. These are not a true SSRI, but share many properties of SSRIs. So Destril and Trazodone are SARIs, SARIs. The next antidepressant are SSNRI, selective serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. Brand name Effexor. Generic name venlafaxine. This antidepressant is a tetracyclic. The way this medication works is still not fully understood. Brand name Remeron. Generic name mirtazapine. The next antidepressant is a phenylpiperazine class, not chemically similar to the other groups of antidepressants. Brand name Surzone. Generic name Nifazodone. The next antidepressant is a Miscellaneous. The Zyban brand is used to help people stop smoking. Brand name Wellbutrin. Generic name Bupropion. Now we move on to the anti-anxiety medications. There are 5. This one is a benzodiazepine, which is also used for other conditions and has a high abuse potential. Brand name Ativan. Generic name lorazepam. This anti-anxiety medication is miscellaneous anxiolytic, sedative, and hypnotic. Also has a warning, do not use if taking an MAO inhibitor. Brand name, Buspar. Generic name, Buspirone. So this brand of anti-anxiety medication is a benzodiazepine. Klonopin. Generic name, clonazepam. This anti-anxiety medication is also a benzodiazepine. Valium. Brand name Valium. Generic name, diazepam. This anti-anxiety medication is also a benzodiazepine. Brand name, generic name, alprazolam. Now we move on to the stimulants treatments for ADHD, the treatment of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. There are 3 stimulants. Brand name, Adderall. Generic name, amphetamine, also mixed salts. Brand name, Concerta and Metadate and Ritalin. Generic name, methylphenidate. Brand name, Dexedrine and Dexedrine Spansules. The generic name, dextroamphetamine. This is the end of the stimulants. Now we move on to the common prescription medications. This drug belongs to the class bronchodilator combination. It's used to treat asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Brand name, Advair Diskus. Generic name, fluticasone salmeterol. This drug belongs to the statins, used to treat lipid lowering agent. Brand name, Crestor. Generic name, rosuvastatin. This drug belongs to the class of serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, SSNRI, used to treat depression, anxiety, osteoarthritis pain, and fibromyalgia. Brand name, Cymbalta. Generic name, Loxitane. This drug belongs to the class of angiotensin receptor blockers, used to treat heart disease and heart failure. Brand name, Diovan. Generic name, Valsartan. This drug belongs to the class antitussives, narcotic analgesic, used to treat opioid pain medication to stop or prevent coughs. And the generic is hydrocodone. It is also habit forming. This drug class is miscellaneous analgesic used to treat pain reliever and fever reducer. There are many brand names. Tylenol is one of the most well-known, and the generic is acetaminophen. This drug is a thyroid drug used to treat hypothyroidism and thyroid cancer by shrinking the gland. It's a synthetic thyroid hormone. There are many brands. One of the well-known ones are Synthroid. The generic name is levothyroxine. This drug belongs to the class insulin, used to treat subcutaneous injection for diabetes. Brand name Lantus. Generic name insulin glargine. This drug belongs to the class of angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, used to treat high blood pressure and heart failure. Main function is to block chemicals that trigger the tightening of blood vessels. Brand name Zestril and Prinivil. Generic name is lisinopril. This drug belongs to the class gamma aminobutyric acid analogs, used to control seizures, nerve pain, fibromyalgia. Brand name Lyrica. Generic name pregabalin. This drug belongs to the class cardioselective beta blockers, used to treat high blood pressure, reduce heart attacks, heart failure, heart angina, or pain. There are many brands. One well-known brand is Lopressor. Its generic name is metoprolol. Metoprolol. This drug belongs to the class of proton pump inhibitors, used to treat gastroesophageal reflux disease, also known as GERD, and other conditions involving excessive stomach acid. Brand name Nexium. Generic name esomeprazole magnesium. This drug belongs to the class of statins, used to treat high cholesterol in conjunction with diet changes, helps to prevent heart attacks and strokes. Brand name Zocor. Generic name Simvastatin. This drug belongs to the class adrenergic bronchodilator, used to treat. It's a solution used in inhalers for asthma. Brand name Ventolin. Generic name albuterol inhaler. This drug belongs to the class of central nervous system stimulant, used to treat hyperactivity and impulse control disorders. Brand name Vyvanse. Generic name lisdexamfetamine. This concludes the list. I'll be uploading other study guides, asking questions from this same list.